Americans walking around the world. Invited us over. We met his wife and his brother. Had a typical French breakfast of marmalade, cheese, fruit, French bread, coffee. And the people had horses, so we put Willie Make It out to pasture. We ended up spending 3 days with some terrific people near Siete, France. And then the highlight of our world walk. We met a princess. John and I and Willie Make It met Princess Grace of Monaco right inside the royal courtyard of the Royal Palace, and I must say it was quite exciting for 2 Americans to meet Princess Grace of Monaco, a real princess. The funny thing is that although Princess Grace agreed to meet the 2 Americans who were walking around the world, when the arrangements were made, they forgot to inform her that we were naturally going to be bringing along our mule, Willie Make It. So we walked into the royal courtyard of the Royal Palace of Monaco. Princess Grace was coming down a spiral staircase looking beautiful just like a princess. All of a sudden she spotted our big mule Willie. She stopped on the steps and she smiled a little bit. She said, "I've met lots of people before, but never 2 guys with a mule. Will she kick?" So we got a little bit of fun with Princess Grace of Monaco. And just to show you what a special lady she was, we presented her with a well-used but well-polished lucky mule shoe, we called it. And Princess Grace accepted that, and when I finished walking around the world, she sent me a letter on royal stationery, which I still have, by the way. I treasure it, and congratulated me and mentioned the fact that she still had Willie Make It's lucky mule shoe on her desk as a memento of our visit to Monaco. Definitely a highlight of walking around the world. And then we walked into the country where we had the most fun. As a matter of fact, Italy was that country, and we had so much fun, we stopped to have a good laugh. We call it our mule laugh. Even Willie Make It was laughing. And I mean to tell you, that's the kind of country Italy is. You can laugh across that country having great times. The picture is in black and white, of course, because the Italian newspaper took the picture, just like in the case of Princess Grace. The court photographer took the picture. But here's San Remo, Italy, with the Russian Orthodox Church in the background, and John and I and Willie Make It having a good laugh. Now I have to tell you a few things why we were laughing, walking across that country called Italy. One day, we're passing through a little village, Lazio, Italy. An Italian man who read about us in the Italian newspapers ran outside, spoke a little English, all excited, and he invited us into his restaurant to have dinner. Well, you know, we're mighty hungry. We'd walked all day long, so I'm going to tie Willie to a tree. And the man said, "No, no, 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 no. Bring that big mula in the restaurant." I said, "You don't take mules inside a restaurant." He said, "Yes, yes, yes, I want to have a little fun, little excitement. Follow me, come, come." So we followed the man right inside the Italian restaurant, and I want to tell you, I mean, it was absolutely fantastic. The mule was bumping over chairs and tipping over glasses, and there was a restaurant packed full of Italian people having dinner and jumping up and going, "Mula, mula, mula," all excited. So the man did get his excitement, and then guess who was inside the restaurant? A hero of ours, Thor Heyerdahl, the famous Norwegian scientific adventurer, the man who wrote the book Kon-Tiki, which of course I'd read. I mean, we were thrilled to meet Thor Heyerdahl, and then inside the restaurant, he was good enough to be a sport enough to allow us to get a picture of him petting Willie on the nose. Definitely another highlight of walking around the world. But we had to be on our way, and we crossed into Venice, Italy. And I say crossed because we had to cross over 6 bridges to get downtown Venice, Italy, city of canals. You can see my brother John there leading Willie Make It up over the Grand Canal Bridge. Well, I have to tell you, the Italians are getting excited, pointing at us, "No, no, mula Vencia, no, no, mula Vencia." Well, now, we knew something was wrong. But, you know, the thing is, we had a language problem. So we just ignored everybody, and we crossed over 6 bridges, and we made it right to the center of St. Mark's Square in Venice, Italy, city of canals, when all of a sudden a high city official came up to us who spoke a little English, and he was very upset. "Impossible, impossible, impossible." Once he calmed down a little bit, he informed us we broke the law. There hadn't been a mule or a horse in Venice, Italy, the city of canals, for 200 years. And I want to tell you, we thought we were in big trouble. But then all of a sudden, you know, the Italians are great people. The guy realized that there we are, and there she is, Willie Make It, in the center of the city of canals. What could he do? Well, he did the right thing. He said, "Wait a minute, wait a minute. You 2 Americans on a great walk adventure around the world, we make it okay. We make exception, exception." He reached in his pocket, pulled out a piece of paper, and wrote in his language in Italian a little permit we could keep Willie Make It, our mule, in the center of the St. Mark's Square in Venice, Italy, for as long as we wanted. Of course, there was one thing the man insisted we had to do, and I can tell you right now it wasn't very much fun, because we weren't used to cleaning up all the messes Willie made in the streets. And I have to tell you something. Sometimes when we got real close to the canals, we just kicked it in the canals. I mean, they were polluted anyway. But that was a great time in Venice, Italy. Now, I wanted to show you this, because this is how, one of the reasons anyway, we got our name in the Guinness Book of World Records. It was a great idea by the mayor of Waseca, Minnesota at the time, who said, "I think you guys ought to take a parchment, a scroll, a paper, along with you around the world, and have every mayor of every city that you spend the night around the world stamp and sign that as a documentation of your walk around the world." And that's exactly what we did. Of course, here's the mayor of Trieste, Italy, signing our scroll. Now, we almost didn't meet the mayor of Trieste, Italy, because you see, all over Italy, a mule is called a mula, except in Trieste. Trieste one time was part of Yugoslavia and Austria, and a mula is a woman with a bad reputation. And so when the mayor of Trieste, Italy, was notified that 2 Americans were walking into town with a mula and wanted to meet him, he didn't want to meet up with us. Thank goodness it was an American consul general there, and he called, and everything was fine. And you can see the mayor of Trieste, Italy, he'd sign our scroll. Another good idea by the mayor of Waseca, Minnesota at the time. Finally, though, again, we had to be on our way. I mean, if we didn't keep moving, we'd never make it around the world. We are walking, you know. And there we were following along the Adriatic Sea from Italy into Yugoslavia. And one afternoon we stopped at a Yugoslavian gas station to give Willie a drink of water. Well, now, you know, I didn't walk up and say, please, can I give my mule a drink of water? That's because I didn't think anybody at the Yugoslavian gas station would understand English, and I certainly didn't speak Yugoslavian. So without asking anybody, I used a little common sense. Looked around, found the pail, filled it with water, and without asking, because I didn't think anybody would understand English, we just let Willie drink. But at that time, Yugoslavian man walked out of the gas station, got a funny look on his face, and perfect English, he said. You want me to check the rear end too? So the guy did speak English. We had a terrific time. He was a great guy. Invited us home. We met his family, had a nice dinner, and he took us out in the town near a place called Ljubljana, Yugoslavia. Then we crossed into the Yugoslavian farm country. Look at the corn right there. It's as tall as Iowa corn. And we met a Yugoslavian farmer. And this guy had read about us in Yugoslavian newspapers, and apparently, and I say apparently because the guy really didn't speak English that well, but John and I pieced this together, he read that the Portuguese gave us that big, wonderful mule, Willie Make It Too. He decided he was going to give us a little dog, a Yugoslavian dog. And so that's how we got our first little dog we called Drifter from a Yugoslavian farm. And then we crossed into a country called Bulgaria. By the way, Bulgaria was the only real hardcore communist country that we walked across. And at first the Americans didn't think that the Bulgarians would allow us officially, you know, to walk across the country. It is a country that is open to international traffic, but we needed a letter, we felt, from the Bulgarian ambassador. And definitely when we went to the Bulgarian ambassador in Yugoslavia, they gave us a fantastic letter. One of the finest letters the American ambassador said that he'd ever seen two Americans get from a communist country. So we headed into Bulgaria, and right away when we crossed the border, we knew we were going to have a problem with the words of their language. I mean, we couldn't even read the road signs. Can any of you? And not only that, when we got to the first town in Bulgaria, we started to have a problem with our sign language. Because in that country called Bulgaria, when people say yes, they go like this. And when they say no, they go like this. So half the time we didn't know what was going on while we were crossing that country called Bulgaria. But we made it to the capital city of Sofia, Bulgaria, and a nice gentleman took a picture of us down in front of the St. Alexander's Cathedral in Sofia, the capital city. It was in Sofia where we spent as you know, gifts of the Marine Guards at the American Embassy for about a week, which was pretty nice. Then we had to be on our way, and we headed into eastern Bulgaria. And of course, there we did see a little anti-American propaganda. The people still were nice enough, and we didn't have certainly any problems, although, you know, a little standoffish because we didn't speak their language, and they didn't know who these two strange creatures were walking with this mule. But we did see a little anti-American propaganda, so you know the government wasn't too happy with the United States. And this particular picture, bombs falling on women and children, says U.S. assassins in Vietnam, because it was during the Vietnam War that we walked around the world. And then we had a real cultural shock. We walked into Turkey. And I mean to tell you, things are different in Turkey. Take a look at that building right there. That is a church. But it's not the kind of church that most people go to on Sunday morning. It's a Muslim mosque. And when John and I, Willie and Drifter, were passing by that Muslim mosque in Edirne, Turkey, it's happened to be a Friday. And Friday to the Muslim people is like Sunday to Christian people. It's a day of prayer. And not only that, it was noon. That's one of the 5 times during the day they're supposed to pray. So there was a man up one of those minaret towers there screaming out over a loudspeaker it was time to pray. And later on we found out from some Americans who lived in Turkey that in English it might have been something like this. God is great. There is only one God but Allah. Muhammad is his messenger. So things were different in that country called Turkey. And then when we got to the biggest city, Istanbul, Turkey, we had to do things a little different. We had to get a wagon. We didn't want a wagon. I mean, we felt, you know, people were going to think we're cheating by riding on the wagon. But the American embassy and the Turkish officials who were kind of looking out for us, they said, no way are you two Americans going to make it walking across the eastern barren mountains of Turkey and later on for sure across the hot deserts of Iran and Afghanistan with that mule Willie alone, because Willie will not be able to carry enough food and water for the 3 of you. You must have a wagon. So we said, okay, we'll take a wagon, but it must be a small wagon. Well, one day we're walking through the streets of Istanbul, and here's this guy pulling this wagon with his horse and pots and pans on it. And I said, that's the kind of wagon we need. And the tourist bureau went right over and bought the wagon for us. Turned out it was a 200-year-old wooden-wheeled wagon, 4 feet wide, 6 foot long, perfect. We loaded up our wagon with our things and hooked the wagon to our mule Willie Make It, waved goodbye to our friends in Istanbul, Turkey, and headed out into the mountain country, the western mountains of Turkey. And now, of course, you notice we have a canvas covering. Well, guess what? Right outside of Istanbul, Turkey, an American Air Force base called Karmasel. And we stopped there, and the American commander waived all rules and regulations, allowed our mule Willie on the base. We spent 7 wonderful days there, you know, kind of caught up on American foods we missed, like hot dogs, hamburgers, hot fudge sundaes, and things like that. It was terrific. And while we were there, the guys put that American canvas on our Turkish wagon. Now, you know what that meant. No longer did we have to sleep on the ground in a tent. From that day on, we could sleep high and dry in our little Turkish wagon. So we christened the wagon the USA Turk Machine. And then that tragedy happened. You know, walking around the world is just like life. Life is wonderful most of the time. It's great. But sometimes bad things do happen. While we're walking around the world, I mean, we love that walk. We love the adventure, the experience. It was wonderful. But sometimes bad things did happen. Turkey, our little dog Drifter was attacked about 3 days after that picture was taken, attacked and killed by 3 huge Turkish sheepdogs. We felt very sad about that. You see, Turkish sheepdogs are mean. They're not like nice lassie dogs that round up and herd the sheep. They're huge brutes, killer dogs. They even have steel collars with spikes sticking out because when they fight a wild dog or a wolf, they don't lose. And one afternoon, our dog Drifter drifted over a hillside out of our sight. We heard all kinds of barking, growling, and snarling. Well, of course, we ran over, but it was too late. We had to bury our dog Drifter in the mountains of Turkey. But we had to be on our way, and it wasn't just too long. We made it to the capital city of Ankara, Turkey. And take a look at that white stuff right there. That's snow. It started to snow. Now, that little bit of snow wouldn't stop 2 guys from Minnesota. We're used to cold weather and lots of snow. But it didn't stop right there. Out in the eastern mountains of Turkey, where we were headed, the snow accumulated to about 6 feet deep, closing the only major highway, the Central Highway at the time, and the temperatures plummeted to 57 degrees below zero. Matter of fact, the American ambassador at the time there, Mr. Hamlin, told us 2 or 3 times, don't be stupid, you guys, and walk the eastern mountains of Turkey in the wintertime. So finally we took his advice, and they decided, the embassy decided that they'd give us an empty American embassy apartment. And we ended up spending there for about 2.5 months during one of the most severe winters Turkey's ever experienced. And while we were there, it was during the Muslim month of fast called Ramadan. And our friends down below here were Turkish people who worked for the American embassy. One morning we came out and they were butchering this sheep. Because we found out that during that month of fast, that Ramadan, they do not eat during the daytime and very little at night for about 30 days. And then when it's over, they like to celebrate. They like to feast. And sure enough, here when it was over, they were ready to have their celebration, their feast. They were butchering a sheep. Finally, we did have to be on our way. And once we were going out into the eastern mountains of Turkey, you notice we have 2 new friends with us. Eşber, a very nice Turkish man who was going to the Middle Eastern Technical University, spoke English, liked Americans, loved the idea of walking around the world. He kept telling us, you Americans are so lucky, you can do anything, even walk around the world. I'm not so free, I could not leave my country and do something like that. I haven't even got a passport. And he just loved the idea. He would love to have gone along all the way, but he said, I am going to walk with you across my country. So Eşber walked with us across his country. And over here, this little black dog, Drifter 2. Well, some Americans who lived in Ankara, Turkey, had that little Turkish dog, and they decided we should have a dog with us. So they gave us their dog, and we called him Drifter 2. But we did have a bit of a problem there with Drifter 2. Now, you have to remember something. By this time, John and I were in pretty good walking shape. In the very beginning, we walked out of Waseca, Minnesota. I mean, we could only do about 15 miles a day, maybe 3 miles an hour. But by this time, we walked across half the United States, Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, and part of Turkey. I mean, we could walk 25 miles a day, maybe 5 miles an hour. Drifter 2 couldn't keep up with us. Drifter's legs got tired, Drifter's paws were sore. See what we did? We built a little doghouse underneath that wagon. When Drifter was tired, he'd just run and jump right up in the doghouse. Now,